Today on Hands on Photography, I get to sit down with one of my most favoritist people on this whole wide world, Miss Lisa Carney, and we're going to talk about smartphone photography and just how important and how it does have its place in the world of photography. Oh, you're going to love this chat. Y'all stay tuned.
This is TWiT. No ads, just the content. That's what you get when you join Club TWiT. You even get extras like TWiT Plus, our new bonus feed just for members, and exclusive access to the Club TWiT Discord community. Join now for just $7 a month and support TWiT as we continue to create top-notch podcasts you expect and deserve. We're just getting started, so be one of the first to join as we build Club TWiT from the ground up. You could be an early member. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to learn more and sign up now. Thanks.
Hey everybody, what's going on? I am Ant Pruitt and this is Hands on Photography here on TWiT TV. Sorry I'm glowing right now. No, I'm not sorry that I'm glowing. I am just beside myself, full of excitement because I am joined today by the amazing, she has a special place in my heart, the one and only Miss Lisa Carney. How you doing?
Oh, hi, sweetheart. I'm good. I'm glowing too, but it's because I'm having hot flashes. So that's a whole nother conversation.
You're so not right. You're so not right.
Right.
I've been wanting to get you on this show for so long, and we've tried and had technical difficulties on my side and all that good stuff. It's just been quite a painful experience, but we finally got you here, and I'm so grateful to have you here because a lot of people will know you more on the lines of the finishing work that you do, the photo finishing that you do. I mean, heck, your Instagram is called Finishing Station, because you kick some ass on that. But what a lot of people don't know is you're a damn good photographer as well. And
thank you very, very much.
And you do it you don't do it with the $6,000 Sony A1 that I just reviewed a couple weeks ago on Hands on Tech.
Nope.
You don't use the latest and greatest from Canon or Nikon. You are using smartphone. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am an iPhone shooter. Well, and this is such an interesting thing. I will tell you, I am a finisher. I do movie posters and TV streaming, Netflix, that kind of stuff for a living. But I'm a photographer at heart. And I went to school for photography. I was a 4x5, 8x10 film shooter. Mm-hmm. Used to do my own hand lining. If anybody knows what this gesture means when you're developing your own film. And I am a photographer at heart, even though my career the majority has been finishing. And I'm at a stage in my life where I'm returning back to my photography, which is great. And it's a privilege to be able to go back to it. Only now I'm doing it with this teeny tiny little device. And it's amazing. I think it's amazing. And I look forward to talking about that.
Well, I mean, you're a photographer at heart, but you're using your phone. What made you just sort of gravitate to using your iPhone versus going back to your Nikon roots?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, it's a little bit of a story. I'll try to keep it short. But so I had moved to France. I had moved to rural France, and I lived there for about 5 years.
Right.
And the universe, likes to laugh at our plans sometimes. And I came home broke, and I mean broke, spiritually, emotionally, and fiscally broke, with my little boy in tow, 2 suitcases in hand, and had to rebuild my life here in LA.
Right.
And I had no money.
Right.
So my Canon, the shutter was broken on my Canon, and I had a phone. I needed a phone for work, an iPhone, and I had to shoot. It's really interesting. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but so I did this series of work on Los Angeles, all using this phone to reacquaint myself. It was like this spiritual, visual storytelling process for myself to ground me, to get me back here.
Right.
And it was private. I don't think I've ever shown it even. Like, it was just for me. And what I realized was this device is phenomenal. And we're talking back at the iPhone 5 or 6 or something like that. Maybe even the 4. And I was like, wait a minute. I can do it with this.
Right.
And then, I picked myself up and, physically got back together, spiritually, emotionally got back together. And I had bought a camera and I went, I don't need this. I got rid of it.
Wow. Just don't need it.
And, I 1,000% don't need it. And let me be really clear. I was a 4x5 film shooter. Like I want to say that because I had some guy and we had a little Facebook war the other day over this. And he was saying anyone right? He was saying anybody who uses an iPhone is basically doesn't know how to use the simplest buttons on a DSLR. And I was like, oh, sunshine. I process my own color film. I can shoot a 4x5 where there is no auto button, mother. But I realized there was just this ignorance about it. Like the device gets what's the word you used? I think polarizing. Like people are, and I got to tell you, I've been having this thought lately in the last few weeks. When people look at painters' work, no one is saying, oh, I used a Winsor Newton chromium red and a selenium pastel, and I used a sable paintbrush on this. But when everyone posts their photos, they're like, oh, I used a Canon and a 85 on f1.2. And I'm like, who gives a
Who cares, right?
It's the story. We're visual storytellers, and I'm sorry I said a bad word there. I don't mean this derisively, but what is it about photographers that we think we are our equipment?
Yeah,
we're not. We are not. And the conversation should be about your composition and your lighting and what's the story you're telling. But we're obsessed. I mean, I swear to Buddha, well, heck, you're a tech reviewer for Pete's sake. So I know you understand what I'm talking about, but what is the obsession with the technology? So Ant, when you shoot, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sweetheart.
No,
are you
ahead.
on a Sony? Are you on a Sony camera?
I'm actually a Canon shooter, but I will shoot with whatever. I'll shoot with whatever's in my hands, though. That's my premise.
So you are right. So when you were showing your work, do you say Canon photography?
No.
No, right? So why are people saying iPhone photography?
Nope.
I don't understand. Someone explain this to me. I'm really...
The only time I will say something along the lines of Canon photography is if it's like I had some sort of direct relationship with that particular shot. That would be it. The only, and if I do say something about smartphone photography, because I have done that, is usually my premise is to drive home the fact that you can do this with a phone, people. You don't have to have that $6,000 camera to do this. I've sold, I sell photo prints, and one of my more popular prints is something I shot with a Google Pixel phone.
Well, and it's interesting. So someone from WPPI, because we're talking about process, and I love her very much, and she sent me this article, and it might have been Pixel. It doesn't matter who the article was, but they were talking about the capability of iPhones nowadays. Right. They had an interesting article about what's under the hood. But in the beginning paragraph, honey, what they put was, well, you're probably not going to make any money with this. and it was so fascinating because why? Why do you even have to put that in the article? What's the premise there? And I just shot a clothing catalog. Does that mean I have to give my $5,000 back for shooting it because I shot it on the iPhone? No. And I don't mean to be derisive when I'm talking about this. I'm actually really curious, like, what is the hang up photographers seem to have? And like, do you think you're your equipment? Like, are you a great photographer because you have a really good Canon lens and a Canon body?
No. And at one point in time, I will be perfectly honest. At one point in time, that did cross my mind that I am as good as my equipment is. But it took some learning, this says, you know what, dude, you need to be able to shoot with whatever they put into your hands. I don't care if it's a iPhone 4. I don't care if it's a old HTC One X that had 4 megapixels on the camera. Whatever it is, you need to be able to shoot with it. And I eventually got to that point,
Yeah. And and I'm not saying there's not the right tool for the right job. So for example, if you're really into detailed landscape, Ansel Adams style, incredible F64 kind of shooting, well then obviously the sensor on an iPhone is not going to do it. You're not going to have fidelity for the shot.
Right.
If that is indeed what you're looking for. And I've been having this conversation of late a lot with my pro photographer shooters, because I'm curious about this dialogue. And I will tell you, one guy said, it was a really honest conversation. And he said, well, everyone thinks they can take a good photo now because the exposure is so good on an iPhone.
Right. The AI.
And I said to him, right. Yeah, it's just good. And I said to him, I said, well, if all you've got going for you is exposure, you got a bigger problem as a photographer.
Right.
If that's your cap of your work is that you know how to get a good exposure, then
I nailed that shutter speed. I nailed that aperture. Yes, I got it.
Right. And it's interesting, and I'm really curious about your viewers, and if I'm sure some people are throwing tomatoes at the computer screen for me saying this now, but it's just, I think it's almost like I feel like in the photography community we've lost our way a bit, and we think it is the equipment more than us, and we're spending less time talking about composition and lighting and story and color and more time talking about the equipment. Right. And I think we're missing the boat there a bit.
There's a slide that you have that I'm gonna pull up on the screen here, and it's just nails this perfectly. It's the wizard,
and I can shoot with every single one. Yeah, and it's also, and I 100% believe it. Like, so the 4x5, why was it so good? I loved racking focus. Like, I definitely like to have that really thin line of focus and have everything go out, or the distortion. Well, I can do that with Lightroom Mobile now. Right. I can do the same kind of distortion manually. So why? I have to tell you, Ant, and I don't know if many people know this, but Lightroom Mobile has cameras in it. Yep. Lightroom Mobile has 5 cameras inside the device, and they offer a plethora of different shooting capacities. But then what comes in my hand for me is the darkroom. Lightroom is a darkroom in your hand. Right. Yeah.
And I love those cameras. The cameras have actually gotten better inside of Lightroom. I remember when they started rolling that out a handful of years ago, and it was a little bit painful for me on the Android side of things, but it definitely has gotten better. And if you want to get into more of the manual controls of your camera on your phone, you have that option to where you don't necessarily have to rely on the AI. You can dial it in yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Pull up something beautiful.
I don't shoot auto. I don't shoot auto at all. So actually, Ant, I would love to, can we talk about this for just a second about camera capturing?
Yeah, sure.
Would that be cool with you?
Sure.
So again, I don't know if folks realize on their phone, there's a wealth of software you can use to capture. So you can capture in RAW. You can do capture in native black and white if you want to. You can do night exposure. And all you're changing is the application. The camera is still the camera that comes with the device right on the end. Right. But the way the algorithm works, it's totally different. So in this sample, this was probably an iPhone 10 I shot this sample on. Then I shot it, same phone camera, and I shot it through Lightroom. Then I used the application 645 Pro, which is awesome.
I've never heard of 645 Pro. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting application. I still think Lightroom's better, but 645 Pro has all the settings that you would normally use on a DSLR. Okay. So photographers used to that feel really comfortable with that because it speaks in the same language. But I would suggest to everybody, try them. You know, some of these are $1, some of them are free, and shoot the exact same scene. And I don't know if your viewers can see this on the, I'm so pro here. There's a little letter written on a piece of white paper behind this caterpillar. Oh boy. So on the left, on the right, there's a giant eye. There's a 645 and there's an M, because after you shoot with a lot of these apps, you can't tell which device shot on it because it just shows up in your camera roll. Right. And I had no way of knowing which camera I used, so very pro. I have a little piece of paper there so I could see. And it's remarkable, the difference. I mean, amazing. And it's only gotten better. iPhone now supports RAW, Apple Pro RAW.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Absolutely game changer. I apologize for having to run through all those slides, but at least you can see this. So not only can you shoot in HDR, but you can also shoot through Apple Pro RAW. And then there's another thing coming out, which is effing amazing, which is the Super Enhance that Adobe has now. So through ACR, Adobe Camera RAW, through Lightroom, you can actually increase your photo. And so on the desktop version of Lightroom Mobile, so it's Lightroom, it's all cloud-based.
Right.
When you're in the desktop, if you are in Lightroom on your desktop and you command click on your image, you can go to enhance, and there's super resolution now. So this macro shot, a tiny little flower I shot, the original raw shot is 14 megabytes off my Lightroom camera.
Nice.
I can res it up to 139 megabytes.
Unbelievable.
Totally.
And so now, you have so much data right out the gate because you're shooting in RAW. And so you're giving its algorithm so much to play with and really do its number crunching on it to get that extra 100 megs
and it's
on
an
it.
AI vision. It's getting better. It's not perfect. For my taste, it's a little sharp, but I have a grain reduction process I use, a preset I use. But it's coming. Here's the thing. While it's not perfect now, I remember when digital first came out. I remember when digital cameras first came out, and they weren't perfect. But man, look at them now.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Kind of process.
Trust the process, right?
Yeah. And I'm not trying to take your DSLRs away from y'all. I'm not. I'm 100% not saying, oh, it's iPhone only and pitch your camera. I'm just saying there's a lot here that you may be missing out on. And there's something I found personally really liberating about using this kind of camera. And it's that, first of all, the device in between me and my subjects is almost invisible. Like no one responds. I was in Cuba. I shot the whole time in Cuba with my iPhone after I pitched the big giant Canon with its giant lens the first day, because I realized it was between me and my people, and I felt like this weird voyeur.
Right.
Like it just felt gross. And I shot it for the entire week on my iPhone. It was amazing. And my interaction, so it was immediate. I was processing immediately. Like while I'm sitting on the back of a cart, I am doing darkroom developing. And I was posting while I was sitting on the back of the cart.
And that's the beauty of all of this. That is the beauty of all of this, especially like I have to go back to pre-pandemic when I was actually working shows. and there's times when that client is going to need some images for social, like right then, you know, and being able to pull up a nice quality smartphone camera and pull it into Lightroom, a nice quality image editor and enhancer. Oh, it's magical. I totally agree with that.
Well, and imagine a wedding. So you've got a wedding shooter and you shoot some B-roll on your iPhone, and maybe you have an assistant who's shooting B-roll, and you apply your secret sauce through Lightroom. Like you have your whole preset, your profile all ready. The couple comes down the aisle, goes into the reception. In the reception is already playing on a giant screen the B-roll with your secret sauce on it. So it looks amazing. I mean, so you can actually offer your clients immediate gratification and enjoyment. And it doesn't mean you're not shooting a portrait with a beautiful big camera. It just means you're adding to it.
Right. Just adding something else to the package.
Yeah.
I totally did
When I did that clothing catalog during COVID, so we're shooting on a stage in Pasadena, and the art director's there in the back of the room on her computer through Lightroom Web, seeing everything, tagging it as it's coming up.
Oh.
Which meant what's the culling?
The culling process, yes.
Was halfway done. And then there was a page layout designer back in Venice or Santa Monica, somewhere on the west side, already laying out stuff.
Magical.
Because they all had access, because you can give access. I mean, come on. And, you know, unfortunately, speed's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Everybody needs everything quick, and
you know,
I don't know.
And I can appreciate the fact that you said you're not trying to take away these DSLRs and mirrorless cameras from people like me, because they still have a job for certain things that I'm going to do. But I do totally dig the convenience of using my phone from time to time to pull something off that's just so much quicker and so much easier. I've tried to preach that on this show from day one. I don't care what camera you use.
You know what? Right? And also, let's talk about some history, some photo history. So I'm a big fan of Magnum photography, and there's let's see who else. Anne Brigwell. In fact, I'm trying to pull up a reference sheet here. Hang on one second, my friend. And when I think about the camera power that Magnum photographers had in the 40s and the 50s, or Anne Brigwell, who I really love, she was an early 1920s photographer. I have more technology in my hand than she had at the time that she was shooting, or when photography first was invented, or wet plate photography. We have more fidelity even than that back then.
Right.
And we look at their work and go, wow. Wow.
They were creating that with quote unquote nothing compared to what we have in our hands right now. So so I just invite folks to not sneer, because it's really interesting. People aren't like, oh, I happen to use a Canon, whatever, or I use a Nikon. They're like, and I'm like, my goodness, what's all this derision? What are you scared of? I don't know.
What's causing those hackles?
I don't know. I just blame the internet in general, because I think the internet has given the people a little bit of false security to just be jerks about any and everything, especially when it comes to creative arts.
I think they feel it, though. What I'm not so concerned about people saying something and hurting my feelings. I actually feel like they're limiting themselves. There's actually this thought.
Yeah.
And when Renaissance painters, or when you look at someone's paintings and they paint with oil, and then you look at someone else's work, Jackson Pollock painted with acrylic. Oh, Jackson Pollock, that's acrylic. That's bullshit.
And it's wrong.
Really?
Come on, really?
No one does that. So anyway, I'm sorry. I know I've been beating this horse a little bit, but I just think it's important for our liberation in our art, to be honest.
And I'm totally down with this. It's a message that needs to be said over and over and over again, because you and I both know this photography industry, once you dive into it, it can be quite pricey just from the get-go. It's super expensive, and having a lower barrier of entry with a phone is a good way to start, because these phones are, as you mentioned previously, they're super smart now, and there's so much compute power in them. You can really dive into it and learn the inner workings of using a physical camera, because you're going to have something like that 645 Pro. What was that app you said? Something like that. That's going to allow you to dial in shutter speed and understand what's happening when you change shutter speed and changing the aperture blades, aperture opening on it. That's some good stuff.
It is some good stuff. I do have to be really clear. It mimics what that is, because there's actually not an aperture.
Correct.
So we just have to be clear about that.
Correct.
But also, here's another thing. I'm doing a couple courses. I have a bunch of classes on Creative Live on mobile shooting, and I've got some new courses coming out and some other places on experimental photography using the mobile device. And here's what I'm thinking. One of the things, like when I'm shooting now, I am a little more freed up with this device because it's so light, it's so easy, and it's not so precious. However, a big hurdle I find people have is they still think of it as a phone. So they shoot from standing height. So I'm always like, look, shoot high, then shoot low. Okay? Just stop thinking of it being your camera. I mean, your phone. Think of it being your camera.
Look at the contrast here. Look at the contrast here. Oh, my goodness.
And look, shoot low and then lay the down. Pardon my swearing. Sorry. Like, really get low. And in fact, I have a real quick story about this. Not this shot particular, but I had a hip injury this winter. And man, getting up and walking was horrendous. But I shoot every day. So I'm out at this lake with my friends shooting. And I got down. I lay him down in the lake. So I'm half in the lake and half in the snow getting this water shot.
Oh, my.
And I couldn't get up.
Oh, no.
I couldn't get up. And he was off shooting with this giant cannon down the lake. And it never occurred to me to call him to tell him to come get me, because I forgot that the camera was my phone. I forgot. I literally laid there for 20 minutes until he came back. And then he was like, well, why didn't you call me? And I went, oh
yeah.
Right.
This is an actual phone.
It's a phone. It's not an idiot, right? Anyway.
I'm just out here with my camera, y'all. That's that. Yeah,
Yes.
Just with my camera.
So I encourage people to forget that it's a phone, but if you get trapped, then remember it's a phone. And, when I talked about the shooting low, then shoot high, get high, change your perspective and focus. I don't think people realize with your iPhone, you can change focus by tapping the screen.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Regular, same shot, just tap the screen, check your lighting. You could backlight. Why not backlight?
Yes.
How easy?
Yes.
And then flare, mama. I love me some flare. I shoot a lot of editorial. And a lot of times in editorial, it's a story about events. It's not stories about actual people.
Right.
And so I need anonymity is kind of important.
Yep.
And I often get anonymity with flares. You can add them in afterwards or like with some third-party apps or just shoot that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other thing is realize, be more conscious. Are you shooting away from the light or towards the light?
Right.
And this is the exact same spot. I'm standing in the same spot. One, I'm turned towards the light, and one, I'm turned away from the light. And I think towards the light is more interesting and more inviting. But I think that way when I've got my mobile device. I'm, thinking about the lighting just like you would with a regular device.
Right.
And then things like exposing for highlights. Like I always expose for the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the opposite film. So it took a while to kind of click with that because I'm processing. And one of the things I do is I process while I'm sitting there. So this is one of my favorite dogs to shoot, Millie. And when I'm shooting Millie in this super light environment with super dark shadows, I am processing the first shot so that I can see, oh, crap, I better expose for the highlights because otherwise it gets too thin.
Right.
And all while I'm sitting there. There's auto exposure, there's highlight exposure, and there's shadow exposure. And based on how I process, the best one for me is highlight.
Now, if you look at, if this is for our audio folks listening to the show, she has auto, highlight, and shadow exposures, 3 different captures here on the screen. And seeing the differences just in the background, it's so key here with that, with your exposure, the highlight exposure, that's your choice. You're able to capture what's happening outside the window, and it's clear. It's beautiful details. It's not just Millie on the couch chilling, catching some beautiful diffused sunlight coming through this large window, but you could see what's going on outside that window because of how you expose for the highlights there. Just so well done.
Yeah. And this is for me, it's when I think it was hackling about people talking about not understanding craft. I understand the craft of digital shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I do it. It's process. It's experimentation. It's, actually trying it out and tapping on your screen and expose for highlight and then tapping on the shadow and then process it differently. I think maybe the difference between my shooting style and other people with mobile devices, if you will, is I'm a retoucher by trade.
Mm-hmm.
And photographer, so I am all about processing. I'm not just about shooting. Some people are very much just about the capture. And for me, I'm all about the darkroom, if you will.
And I think they go hand in hand myself.
I think they do. I think I'm probably more process heavy than your average bear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm a retoucher. I can't help it. But like I'll expose for when I'm shooting, I'll shoot a dark scene. Like I shot the forest on the right-hand side. It was almost nighttime. And I was driving down Highway 5 one morning, and there was all this fog, and it was really light, and the light was bouncing around because the sun was coming up.
Right.
And I thought, I wonder if I could do that with that dark shot. Like, I wonder if I could process this in such a way that it felt like that light shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this almost like a exercise.
I love this.
Do you know what I mean? Like
I love that.
Trying it out. So this is the exact same shot, and one's processed for light and one's processed for dark. It's the exact same frame.
I love this.
It's not
this is how you sharpen your skills, though. It's just by jumping in and doing experiments like this. This is how you get sharp on it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and Yeah, it's fun. And on this screen, again, this is me just practicing. There's a shot of my dog Bear on the left, pardon me. And I just did a Lightroom edit, and it was snowing so hard when we were out there. But snow is a really hard thing to capture.
Yeah.
Especially
I'm not a fan of shooting in the snow.
Well, it's hard to feel I was feeling like, oh my God, I'm covered in snow. But when I looked at the shot of him, I'm like, oh my God, you barely see anything.
Right.
So I have a third-party app I use that I can add snow, so it feels like how it felt to me.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And yeah, and then the middle shot is, and you and I talked about this, I think, once before. I shoot every day. It's a commitment I made to myself that I shoot every day just for the practice and the love of it. And I was, again, driving Highway 5 in this crappy rest stop. I mean, disgusting. And I realized I hadn't shot for the day. I hadn't done my shot yet. And I shot this grass. Yeah, well, and I think this grass came out really cool, but look how ugly the place was. In with my dirty doggy bag full of poop, I'm walking down this road, and I'm like, I can still capture something. And then the slide on the far right I'm sorry for those who are just audio, you can't see this, but Anne Brigman, who I love her stuff, she shoots early 1920s photographer. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see if I could mimic that kind of look that she had. So I just happened to pick something I shot in Marin. And one of the things in the darkroom on the camera, the Lightroom, if you take the clarity down, it blurs your whites, but you can keep your structure high. Oh. So I just blurred the whites down. I didn't get the color exactly right, but I was just experimenting. I was like, if I want this soft, grainy, out of focus look, how might I do that? And so I do it as an exercise.
And it gave it a little bit of atmosphere too by softening that clarity just a touch. Okay. Huh.
Yeah. So again, so what I do often, Hun, is I'll look at masters photography or different looks or paintings or whatever, and I'll go, great, how can I possibly learn how to mimic that on my phone?
I love this. Now, before I let you go, I want to allow you the opportunity to tell people where we can find some more of your not only your musings, but you're doing classes and just dropping a whole lot of knowledge and stuff. How can people sign up for some of your classes and get some time to learn from you and be able to pull more and more out of their smartphones, as well as understand the full vision of it all?
Cool. Well, thank you for this opportunity. In fact, I'm going to get a screen up here in just a second. So you can definitely find me on Creative Live. And I have a whole new series of mobile shooting classes because I think there is some technical things under the hood that I can help people find because I have spent all this time looking for it. And I've also, Photo Plus, I have 2 classes on there already aired by Adobe. There's another one just aired last week. Shooting with mobile photography is already up at Photo Plus. It's free, by the way, if you sign up. Beautiful. And there is a new class coming next week on profiles and presets. June 10th, that's when that one releases, excuse me. And then I have Scott Kelby, the Kelby One Group, is doing a bunch of iPhoto conferences. They're doing a new iPhoto conference.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to be on that, which is going to be really exciting. And what I'm really excited about on that one is I'm doing a generic shooting for iPhone conversation, which I think could be really handy. But I'm also doing my first macro photography class with them.
So you're going to be super, super busy here for the next little while. Is what it sounds like. And I feel like, I mean, dare I say, I'm kind of on a mission to open this up for people because I know a lot of people have been economically impacted by COVID and they don't have money for new cameras or big stuff. And this doesn't take anything to shoot. You already have it. And I don't care if you're on an iPhone 5, iPhone 12, a Google Pixel Plus. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Outstanding. Miss Lisa, this has just been again, next level information that I am so glad
thanks for letting me
that
rant.
get you on here and let you rant, because I feel you on that rant. So thank you so much for joining me here on the show.
Pleasure.
My goodness. And I hope to be able to get you back on here soon.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Now, this was just, wow. That's a lot of information. And you know what? You're going to go back and rewatch this episode a handful of times, quite honestly. It's packed. I love it. Thank you all so much for your tremendous support of the show. If this is your first time catching the show, go ahead and make sure you're subscribed. And if you're using something like Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave me a star rating in there and leave me a comment. I have no problem with you wanting to give me all 5 stars. I'm not going to get upset about that. Appreciate it, actually. And if you're just looking for all of our subscription options, just check out the website, twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP for hands-on photography. You'll see all of our show notes there, especially for like this episode here. There's a lot of notes that I'm going to stick in there so you can get a hold of Miss Lisa and everything that she's doing and sharing for the photography community. And feel free to give me a follow over on Instagram and Twitter. I am Ant_Pruitt on Twitter. I am Ant_Pruitt on Instagram. Again, thank you for the support. Thank you to my man, Mr. Victor, who's editing these shows and making me look and sound good each and every week. Brother, I know you're working hard, because that's a lot of hard work there. All right, everybody. You all continue to safely create and dominate, and we will catch you next time. Y'all take care.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.